Because Jesus seems to call this woman a dog. And maybe he is. But let's take a closer look at it. First, in Greek it's a diminutive, so it really would be better translated, and actually in some languages it is translated puppy. A puppy. Doesn't take the children's food and give it to the puppies. It's a diminutive. So maybe that makes it a little softer, I don't know. It depends on how much you like dogs, if you don't mind being called a puppy. But really, you have to read the whole context. Jesus had just finished a discussion with the religious leaders who were complaining that his disciples were eating without properly washing their hands first. And they weren't concerned about sanitation. It had to do with religious rituals. And Jesus gives his famous speech about there is nothing that can come into a person that can defile him. It's what comes out of a person that defiles them. And like usual, his followers, that's us, didn't get it. And so they ask him later, what was that all about? And he says, look, whatever comes into you goes into your stomach and goes out again. But what comes out of you proceeds from your heart. Because from the heart, and then he lists several actions and attitudes that are manifest an evil heart. Adultery, murder, envy, jealousy, hatred, these things that come out of the heart. And he says, these things come out of the heart, and these are what defile a person, not what comes into a person. Then it says, and Jesus went into the region of Tyre, which is basically, he went to Lebanon. He'd been down in Palestine. He goes up to Lebanon, and he goes into a house, and he doesn't want anyone to know it. This is what Mark's version of it gives us a little more information. In other words, he's taking a break. So he goes out of the Jewish territory, up into Lebanon, and he's in a house. He doesn't want anyone to know it. But, of course, when you're Jesus, it's really hard to hide. Everybody finds out pretty quick. And one of the neighbor ladies has a daughter who has demon-possessed. And she comes to Jesus and says, Jesus, have mercy on me, for I have a daughter that is severely demon-possessed. It is interesting that she doesn't say, Jesus, have mercy on my daughter. She says, Jesus, have mercy on me. That she so identifies with her sick child that it's her that's suffering. Right? Many church fathers who comment on this passage say that this is the right attitude for all of us to have in prayer. That is, if we want God to hear our prayers, the pain of the people we're praying for needs to be our own. We have to take it on ourselves. And that suffering that the people were concerned about, it has to be our suffering. But this woman was not a Jew. Jesus had said earlier, I've come only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That was his ministry. She was Lebanese. By the way, I gave a similar version of this talk at the Arabic church Friday night. They really got upset at me for talking about how Jesus called the Lebanese a dog, right? But there was a group. In fact, Mark even says Syrophoenician, which is Phoenicia was Lebanon. And he says to her, no. No. I think everybody here has had, like even little kids, right? Daddy says no. We've had God say no to us when we've prayed. And to make it worse, she keeps asking, and Jesus then explains it's not fair or it's not right to take the bread of the children and give it to the dogs. In other words, it's not right for me to take this power of God that he has given me, that is supposed to be given to the lost sheep of Israel, and give it to someone who is not part of the lost sheep of Israel. Right? And he compares that. He uses a metaphor. Just like a family, you have food that's for your children. It would be wrong for you to give it to your dogs or your puppies. Right? So St. John Chrysostom at this point asks a question. He says, what do you do not only when God has said no to you, but when God seems to be saying to you, you're unworthy? What do you do when you pray and you're not even praying for yourself? You're praying for someone else you love, you care about. And God says no. And more than that, like to this woman. Because in the, food for the children, give to the dogs, she's not represented by the children in that little saying. She's represented by the dog. So what do you do when God seems to be saying to you, you're unworthy? You know what St. John Chrysostom says? He says, you do exactly what this woman did. You accept it. And you appeal to his mercy. Okay, I'm a dog. But even the dogs get the crumbs that fall from the master's table. Now, some of you may be thinking, especially if you took college psychology, well, no, that's so bad for your self-esteem, right? I've got some good news and some bad news. The bad news is God doesn't care about your self-esteem. The good news is God cares deeply that you know him as he is. And the beginning of that is to know that you're not God. That you're not worthy. No one's worthy. We all come to God on the basis of mercy. No one comes to God and says, hey, God, you owe me. No, that doesn't ever happen. This is why in the prayers of the church, we just sang it before communion. Like the thief, I will remember you. Right? Well, maybe I haven't stolen anything recently, but still, I am like the thief. Like the harlot. Well, maybe I've never sinned that way, but still, I say, I am like the harlot. Maybe I never had the opportunity. Who knows what kind of sin I would commit if I had the opportunity, right? This is the way the church teaches us to come to God, like this woman who says, okay, I'm a dog. Call me a dog. But at least the dogs get the crumbs that fall from the table. And Jesus says to her, great is your faith. Let it be to you according to your word. You see? Because when we humble ourselves, God lifts us up. But if we lift up ourselves, what happens? The opposite, right? It doesn't go well for us. So it's better, like St. John Chrysostom says, when God doesn't seem to be answering your prayers, when maybe even you feel like God is disrespecting you, or you feel like it's not going well, do what this woman did. Accept it. I'm not worthy. That's right. I don't deserve anything. But I appeal to your mercy. Have mercy on me, O God. And from that position of humility, let's see what God will do. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.